The IRS is to spend $80 billion to hire 30,000 new employees and boost audits on the wealthy. The Internal Revenue Service plans to hire nearly 30,000 new employees and deploy new technology over the next 2 years as it ramps up an $80 billion investment plan to improve tax enforcement and customer service, it said on Thursday. The tax agency, in its long-awaited strategic operating plan, said it will obligate about 8.64 billion of the new funding during the 2023 and 2024 fiscal years, and that 8,782 of the new hires during those years will be enforcement staff. The IRS is going to hire more data scientists than they ever have for enforcement purposes. Deputy Treasury Secretary Wale Adeyomo told reporters, adding that these would complement more traditional tax attorneys and revenue agents in using new data analytics technology to identify audit targets. Like, do you realize how scary this actually sounds? Like, they're basically creating an army of employees that are going to hunt down people to milk them for all the taxes that they possibly can. The IRS will continue to ramp up customer service hiring after taking on 5,000 new taxpayer services staff in recent months to answer telephones, reopen taxpayer assistance centers, and process tax returns. Including those new employees, customer services hiring will total 13,883 full time equivalent staff over the 2 year period, according to the 148-page plan. But a significant portion of these new hires will replace the nearly 12,000 IRS employees expected to retire over the next 2 years, including more than 4,700 enforcement staff, a Treasury official said. The $80 billion in new funding from last year's climate-focused Inflation Reduction Act is aimed at rebuilding the agency's audit capabilities in 1960s-era computer technology after a decade of funding cuts mostly by Republican-controlled Congresses. It also aims to help close the tax gap between taxes owed and those paid, estimated by Treasury at some $600 billion a year, by focusing new audits on the wealthiest Americans. The Congressional Budget Office has estimated that the new funding will generate about $204 billion in new revenue during the next decade, funds that helped pay for the Inflation Reduction Act investments. The Treasury has used estimates as high as $400 billion over the decade, with higher collections beyond the 10-year budget window. New IRS Commissioner Danny Werfel told reporters that the agency would soon provide hiring and spending plans for the 2025 fiscal year and would continually update the operating plan. The agency's ability to deploy new technology to automate many functions would help dictate future staffing needs, he said. So let's see some of these comments. Someone has to pay for the illegals, may as well be the middle class, will never target the wealthy. The wealthy can afford tax attorneys to avoid paying what they owe. These new hires will attack the middle class and bury them into poverty so government can control them easily. People of lower and middle class economic backgrounds are about to find out how worse the federal government thinks they are. Fools, this is not a tax revenue problem, it's a massive corrupt spending problem. Both sides are guilty, but the current admin, JHO, is taking it to the whole other level. You can tax all the billionaires 100% of their wealth. 4.5 trillion total would not cover a full year's budget. Then nobody would have a job. $80 billion for 30K employees is 2.7 million per, or 177K per year over 15 years. Would it not be nice if we could simply simplify the ridiculous complicated tax code where even the average person feels they need a CPA and where every one of these 30K new agents will give you a different answer? The growth of government is destroying this country. This is wasted money, nothing productive for the economy or our quality of life. They're going after small fish, not the big fish. It's obvious you don't need 30,000 additional employees to go after the rich. Nobody likes to pay taxes, and the IRS is always unpopular, but I am tired of paying my own taxes while other people get away with cheating on theirs. The IRS doesn't need new employees to persecute the honest but beleaguered middle class. It needs them to go after the criminal class, which is all too large in this country. If everyone paid what they legitimately owe, maybe the rest of us wouldn't have to pay so much. And like the craziest thing about the whole tax system, especially for people who are super wealthy, one, like the one comment, they are wealthy enough to hire very good CPAs and very good tax lawyers. Not to mention, when you are extremely wealthy, you could do something crazy like literally paying your taxes with debt. And that is not a good route to do, but technically you could basically pay your taxes on money that you don't even have, like using money that you don't even have. So for example, this was something that was like offered I think like a year ago, year and a half ago for some of the brokerage companies, right? Like Robinhood and One Finance, that sort of thing. And let's say that you had like $1 million in stocks and index funds in that brokerage account. They were willing to basically loan out like more than half of that money at like 1%. So you could have technically loaned yourself enough money to pay yourself taxes, like to pay your own taxes using a loan on money, on assets, technically, that haven't been sold. Like it's crazy. Like it's so crazy because like technically speaking, you could end up taking out that money, like that loan, on your assets, paid off your taxes, and also reinvested the other extra money and basically made on average like 8 to 10% per year minus the 1% fee, so you're basically profiting 9% a year after doing that with money that's not technically yours is crazy. Like it's really crazy with the whole tax system, especially when you start getting more and more and more money. But the thing is, if we simplified the tax code, there wouldn't be options like that, right? Or if there is, it'd be very, very rare. Like if everyone could basically just be forced to pay like a 10% tax, even though that's still theft, but a 10% flat tax for everyone with no loopholes, well, regardless of what you make, you're paying 10%, right? Not to mention there's always sales tax too, which everyone has to pay for. So you could always boost up sales tax so that people will end up like people who spend more money will end up paying more taxes. The only problem with the sales tax option is that the lower income individuals will end up paying more of a percentage of their total income on taxes than, let's say, a wealthy individual. So that's the only issue, but still, like the government makes taxes so much more complicated. Anyone who thinks the IRS is hiring 80K agents to go after the wealthy is fooling themselves. They're hiring 80K agents to go after OF models and TikTok stars who are too uneducated to know once you start making big money, you need a real accountant. Like, what's interesting, like, I stumbled upon this clip where a YouTuber, influencer, whatever, called Bradley Martin basically described how it was when he made his very first $1 million. And he made the $1 million, spent like 400 grand on a house, spent like bought a brand new car, spent like another 300,000 whatever, basically spent like close to $700,000. But then it was like at the end of the year and he was hit with a tax bill of like $400,000, which he didn't have the money for. So the problem with people who like are in the OF field or influencers or whatever, their income can basically go like zero to like crazy amounts of money very quickly. Like you could basically be making minimum wage as like an OF model or a TikTok store and influencer, and then out of nowhere, if something clicks on your social media, your income just skyrockets. So you can literally go from minimum wage to basically making multiple six figures in a couple months, which is insane. Crazy. Feel free to give your thoughts. If you want to learn how to get out of debt, go down below or go to 40inbox.com.